Hey everybody, I'm Vera Stewart and welcome to the VeryVera show. I am so excited to introduce you to some beautiful oysters from Murrells Inlet, South Carolina. You know, I come across people all the time when I'm doing demos at the fresh market, and Chip and Christine Chandler came in to visit with me while I was doing one not long ago. Said, have you ever done an episode on oysters? And I said, well, actually not. They said, well, guess what? We're going to introduce you to someone. Chip's dad has a dock down there and on deep water, and he said, you know, there's a guy that works with us all the time named Snake Man. And I'm thinking, okay, now I'm going to have Snake Man on my show. Well, actually, I wish I did have Snake Man on the show. Franklin Smalls, who's more affectionately referred to as Snake Man, harvests these oysters right there in the Murrells Inlet area, and they are noted as the sweetest, most delicious oysters there are. And now that I've had them, I can say so myself. They are delicious. So today we're going to do two mignonette sauces, a regular and a green. And the green is a little sweet, but it's also kind of spicy. And then I'm going to do two recipes. We're going to do an oysters Kilpatrick, and then we're going to do an oysters au gratin. Both are beautiful, really easy to make, and just certainly showcase these oysters today. So let's get started with the first sauce, and it's really very simple. It uses red wine vinegar, peppercorns and shallots, and a little bit of salt. So I've got the red wine vinegar measured out. I'm going to use some whole peppercorns, and this is where your coffee grinder comes in really handy for things other than coffee. I'm just going to put those down in my coffee grinder, and we're just going to pulse them for just a little bit, just to get them ground up. And you know, like I've mentioned other times when you're using fresh herbs or fresh seasonings, if you'll do the treatment to them at the very last minute, you're more likely to get that flavor. So leave a few of them whole and the rest of them ground up. It's just perfect. And then I've very thinly diced my shallot. And I'm going to put just a little bit of kosher salt. And then this is just going to mix up. Now these oysters are really, really sweet and delicious. So this just is going to kind of penetrate and just pump up that sweet flavor on those oysters. All right, the next one I'm going to use my Wolf blender. And I've got two different rice vinegars. I've got just a plain rice vinegar and a seasoned rice vinegar. And this green mignonette sauce is a little sweet, and it's actually because of the rice vinegar and probably a little bit of the shallots too. So we've got some more of the shallots in that one, some diced jalapeno pepper. We've got some fresh parsley, and that was chopped up right at the last minute. And then I'm going to just juice half of a lemon to go in this one. And these are just the sauces that if you're eating them raw or steamed, it just really enhances the natural flavor of the oyster. All right, so I'm going to just pulse that real quick. And you know, there's a myth that if the month does not have an R in it, you shouldn't eat the oyster. But now that they're farmed, you know, that's really not the case anymore, because you can get these delicious oysters all year long. Okay, that looks about right. You want it to be a little bit frothy, and that'll settle down. It's really a pretty color. All right, so we're going to put these together, and when we come back from the break, we're going to get started on the oysters Kilpatrick. And notice that I've got the emphasis on the word kill, because there's a really cute story about where this recipe came from. So come back with us in just a few minutes. Welcome back, everybody. Ooh. And if you're just joining me, we're doing oysters today, and I am having the best time. These are fantastic. They're from Murrells Inlet, South Carolina, and I came in contact with Snake Man, Franklin Small, that lives in the area, and he through way of Chip Chandler, introduced me to this fantastic oyster that's just noted in that area. Very sweet, very juicy. So we're getting ready to do something that I would probably do as an appetizer instead of doing as a full dinner, because it's just, you know, you do go to a little bit of trouble to do this, shucking the oysters and that sort of thing, but would be fantastic as an appetizer for, you know, a cookout one night, dinner party. So what you want to be sure that you do is keep these on ice at least until the very last minute, maybe a couple of hours before you get ready to do them. We went ahead and rinsed them off. We had them cleaned and shucked. They've been sitting on ice, getting ready for this final step. So I've got these all ready, and we've got them on a bed of rock salt on the sheet pan. The rock salt, not only does it look really cool, you could actually serve from this, but it actually operates as a bed to keep these upright while they're in the broiler. So it's just the perfect presentation. So this is Oysters Kilpatrick. And I said earlier that this was a really cute story, and then everybody reminded me it's not a cute story if the guy died. So let me back up on that for just a minute and say it's actually a kind of a sad story, but where in the world did the name Oysters Kilpatrick come from? My married name is Kilpatrick, and so I thought, well, I wonder if it's an old family recipe. But it was actually a man named Patrick who made his living harvesting oysters, and one night he didn't come home from being out all day doing this, and his wife was worried about him. They went out looking for him, and he had actually died doing the harvesting of the oysters. So Oysters killed Patrick. His name was Patrick, so that's where this recipe came from that she did in his honor. So it calls for bacon, ketchup, lemon juice, and Worcestershire sauce. So we're going to put together something very, very simple that's going to go on the top. So I've gone ahead and just chopped up about a half a pound of thick bacon. And what you want to do with this is just have it chopped enough so that it's going to sit on top of each one. And I love just, you know, you want to actually have a good bit of fat in this too, because it actually adds to the flavor. So what I've done ahead, I'm going to mix in, and then I'm going to take the juice of 1/4 of a lemon, and you could make the actual mixture part up in advance, and then my Worcestershire sauce. And I'm just going to mix this together, and then this is going to get spooned on the top of each one of these. So I've got my broiler on, and you're going to broil this for about 10 minutes, and you're thinking, now that's a lot of raw bacon in there. But it actually cooks to a really not crispy like you would have it with your eggs in the morning, but just enough that the top of it gets a little bit crispy. So I'm just going to spoon a nice heaping tablespoon of that on top of each one. And then when it sits up under the broiler, the edges of the bacon, some parts of it, actually get really brown and crispy. The oyster also cooks almost like you've steamed it. So if you're still a little leery and scared of a raw oyster, this would be the perfect dish for you to try. And presentation-wise, like I said, this rock salt is fantastic. But in our last part of the show today, I'm going to show you some actual serving pieces that you're going to want to make this dish just to pull those serving pieces out of the cabinet. So I'm going to keep stacking this up and getting it ready. I'm going to put it in the broiler on 500 for about 10 minutes. And when we come back from the break, we're going to get started on an oyster au gratin that you can use in this fashion, or you could make a casserole out of it. So come back with me in just a few minutes. Vera's Corner is brought to you by Jeff's Sewing and Vacuum. Today I want to tell you about the Sacred Heart Garden Festival, a weekend filled with Southern classic gardening that you don't want to miss. Enjoy 3 days of food, entertainment, and of course, nature's beauty. Be sure to visit the garden market or even enjoy a formal tea or lecture. The Garden Festival preview party will take place on Thursday, April 20th at 7 p.m. It includes music, wonderful food, and beautiful floral exhibits. Don't miss Friday night in the garden from 5 to 8 with more fantastic food from Fat Man's Foods Truck and music by the Mason Jars, all in Sacred Heart's courtyard. The Garden Festival and Tour of Gardens will take place from Friday, April 21st through the 23rd. Tour some of the most beautiful gardens in the area and get some ideas on how to spruce up your own. This is a great opportunity to see historic gardens like the ones in the Somerville area of Augusta. Not only are you able to visit, but this festival also offers a speaker series in which I'll be participating. You can come see me speak about cooking with fresh herbs on Friday at 10:30 a.m. For more information on this wonderful festival, go to sacredheartgardenfestival.com. Welcome back, everybody, and I'm having such a good time today doing these recipes with oysters, and these are from the Murrells Inlet area, and I'm just excited about the way everything has turned out so far. We've got 2 sauces that are under our belt. We've got Oysters Kilpatrick that's come out from under the broiler. It was in there for about 8 minutes. Depending on your oven and where your rack is for your broiler, you want to check them as they go. If it starts to get really crisp on the outside, that's going to be just right, and those have come out and are now in the warming drawer. And I've gotten started on the roux for the oysters au gratin that we're going to do next. And so ahead of time during the break, I went ahead and melted my butter, added the flour to that slowly, and let that cook until it was a nice golden brown color. Now I've added milk to it slowly, and you want to just cook this until it starts to coat the spoon, just like it's doing now. And now I'm ready to add in some shallots, some horseradish, and just a little bit of red pepper flakes, and that's, of course, to taste. And this you just want to stir in really well, and then at this point, you turn this off of the heat, and it needs to cool down for the second part of the recipe. So I'm going to transfer this over out of the way and move forward what I've done in advance that's cooled down and is just the right consistency for what we're going to put on top of this next dish. All right, so the topping for this particular dish is breadcrumbs, olive oil, and Parmesan cheese. And all you're really doing there is just mixing this together. And I love to freshly grate that Parmesan, it's always nice. But if you don't have time to do that, Fresh Market always has it freshly grated for you right there at the edge of the deli case. Okay, so you've got a really good mixture that's going to go on the top. All right, so let's talk a minute about these oysters and the preparation for this particular dish. You know, lots of you are familiar with oysters. You've either had them fried, you've either eaten them raw, but these are just different interpretations of how to eat them, and things that maybe you might not want to do for a big crowd, but would be the perfect appetizer. Or if you're just having a few friends over, maybe a couple of these for different ways to serve oysters when they're just in season and just the perfect dish for this time of year. All right, so the dish that we did earlier, I did not separate the oyster from the shell, but this time you just want to take your oyster knife and just kind of loosen that raw oyster just a little bit from the shell. And as you can see, I've got them laying on the ice as I'm getting ready for the preparation on this. All right, so I'm going to put these down in a prepared pan and just loosen them just so it's easy for this to come out with a fork for eating. All right, so those, and some of these are so crazy. I've already done most of these, so I'll start putting these in the pan. All right, so now I'm gonna get my cooled down sauce. And we're gonna spoon just a little bit of the au gratin on the top of each of the oysters. Oh, and this is just creamy and delicious. And the reason you want it to cool down is it needs to be thick in order to stay in place when you're doing this. And then you'll come behind with a little bit of the breadcrumb mixture. And I'm actually gonna use my little spatula for that. So you just wanna top it off with a little bit of this. And so this is gonna crisp up when it's baking. Really, you know, this can be served warm. It can be served at room temperature. But when you cook it, it's just gonna really bubble up and be nice. So the other twist to this recipe would be to go ahead and remove the oysters from the shell, put a little bit of that breadcrumb mixture in the bottom of your pan, layer your oysters out of the shell, put the cream sauce over it, and then a little bit more of the topping on top, and you've got a great oyster casserole as a side dish. So we're gonna be putting all the finishing touches on this for a beautiful presentation, so come back with us in just a few minutes. Welcome back, everybody, and what a beautiful spread. Oysters from the Murrells Inlet area of South Carolina, noted for the juiciness and the sweetness of these delicious oysters. And we've done some pretty remarkable recipes today that I hope you're gonna try. And as always, our recipes are available at VeryVera.com. All right, let's start with the first thing we did today, and those were our 2 mignonette sauce. We did a classic, and we did a green. The classic was the red wine vinegar, the shallots, a little bit of pepper, just a really great dipping sauce real quick for when you're using the oysters raw. And then the green sauce is a little bit frothier, it's really a vibrant green color, has a little bit of a kick to it, and it's great too with either fried or raw oysters. So keep those in mind if you're gonna be using the oysters in a different preparation than the other 2 recipes that we did today. All right, then we moved over to Oysters Kilpatrick. This had a cute story that went with it, although we found out that it wasn't so cute because the guy actually died in the experience of getting these oysters to bring home to his wife. But she made this recipe in his honor, and guess what? It is delicious. So you're gonna wanna try it. We got that under the broiler, and one thing that I forgot to mention to you is when they come out, of course, the bacon is cooked in the process. So you want to just tilt the shell to get the bacon fat away from it onto the rock salt before you put it onto your serving platter. And then finally, the oysters au gratin. Just a delicious dish, can be done 2 different ways. You can do it as an individual on the shell piece, or you could do it as a casserole with the oysters out of the shell. So both of those are really great dishes. This also went into an oven, just nice and piping hot when it came out. And in both of these techniques, utilize your warming drawer if you have one, or just turn that oven on a very low, put a piece of aluminum foil on top, and keep them warm until you're ready to serve. Well, none of this could be this beautiful without the help of my friend Greg Boulis in Charleston Street for giving us all of these beautiful presentation pieces today. I love the platters, everything that was used for this. The display piece for the raw oysters is perfect, either as an individual serving piece or as a, something for a group. The platters are fantastic, and if you want to protect them because you're using them as decor in your home, I just put a little bit of alfalfa sprout on the middle of each one so that they wouldn't get scratched. They also came in and completely decorated the kitchen today. I just love the way everything looks. It's just fantastic. fantastic, all the different colors. So if you want to know more about them, go to charlestonstreet.com. Everything that we're using today ships beautifully. So if you're looking for a wedding gift or just something special for a birthday gift, I hope you'll keep them in mind. Then I also want to call out the Augusta magazine. You know, I subscribe to all the magazines for all the different cities where our show is aired. And this month, the Augusta magazine actually has an article on oysters that was written by a former employee, Mary Ashton Mills, worked with me in her high school years in my mail order department, did a fantastic job, and now she's quite an accomplished writer. So I hope you'll pick that magazine up. Again, you can also order that online and read this beautiful story about how to have your own party with oysters. So certainly none of this would have been possible without Chip Chandler, his introduction to us about the idea for this episode, and then him putting us in touch with Snake Man that provided all of these oysters. So I want to thank both of them for their support and, you know, dedication to this episode today. And I want to invite all of you to share these recipes and to like us on Facebook and just keep up with what's going on with the VeryVera show. And as I always say, no matter what you do it in good taste, and I hope you'll come back and join me again next week for another episode of the VeryVera show. Enjoy!